Good evening. This is World News Tonight. Power, pressure, and posturing on the global stage. From Washington to Tehran to Greenland, the Arctic ice to NATO's fault lines, a series of moves and deployments are reshaping the world's strategic map. We begin with the most volatile flashpoint, Iran, where claims of restraint are met with threats that are very much alive. At the White House, the tone has shifted, but the option remains open. US President Donald Trump says he has been told that the killings of protesters in Iran have stopped. Executions, he claims, have been paused, but verification is pending. And military action, he says, is not off the table. Here's what Washington is signaling and why Tehran's assurances are being met with deep skepticism.
What if the next US war doesn't start with an invasion, but with a menu? A list of strike options, each one dangerous, each one irreversible. Welcome to Trump's Iran strike menu. As tensions rise between Washington and Tehran, the Trump administration is reportedly weighing military options against Iran. No boots on the ground, no full-scale war, at least not at first. Instead, precision strikes. But every option comes with a price. On paper, this looks like the cleanest move. Eliminate Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He's the face of the regime, the final authority, the man behind Iran's crackdowns, proxy wars, and nuclear defiance. A successful decapitation strike could shatter the regime's command structure. With protests already simmering, it might accelerate internal collapse. Just like the Soleimani strike in 2020, it could disrupt Iran's external operations overnight. But Khamenei is heavily protected and constantly on the move. Any strike near Tehran risks massive civilian casualties, including protesters. And instead of weakening the regime, it could unite Iranians against a foreign enemy and justify brutal retaliation. The Basij militia is the regime's muscle. They crush protests, they enforce loyalty, they fire on civilians. Targeting them means hitting the regime where it hurts, internally. This weakens Iran's ability to suppress dissent. It sends a message of support to protesters, and it avoids targeting civilians directly, at least in theory. Basij units are embedded in neighborhoods. Collateral damage would be inevitable, and Tehran would spin it as a foreign invasion. Retaliation wouldn't be conventional. Cyber attacks, proxy strikes, terror operations. This is Netanyahu's long-favored option. Strike Iran's nuclear facilities, Natanz, Fordo, before Iran reaches the bomb. US intelligence warns Iran could be weeks away under worst-case scenarios. It delays Iran's nuclear ambitions, buys time for diplomacy, and reassures US allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia. However, airstrikes won't destroy the program forever. They'll just push it deeper underground. This one doesn't target soldiers or scientists. It targets money. Karg Island handles nearly all of Iran's oil exports. One strike and Iran's revenue collapses. No oil money means less funding for repression and proxy wars. Economic pressure could trigger massive unrest, potentially even regime collapse. And here's the brutal reality. You can cripple Iran, or you can protect the global economy. But you can't do both. Every strike risks escalation. Every restraint risks Iran going nuclear. With protests raging, with proxies active across the Middle East, and with nuclear timelines shrinking, the next move could reshape the world. This isn't just about Iran. It's about how much chaos the world is willing to risk.
The White House has sparked controversy with a stark visual warning. A graphic posted online shows Greenland at a crossroads, one path towards Washington, the other into what it calls Russian-Chinese influence. The caption bluntly asks, which way, Greenland? The post comes as Donald Trump reiterates that the Arctic island is critical to US security and suggests America will secure it one way or the other. Denmark and Greenland have rejected that claim outright, but the message has already triggered diplomatic tremors.
What if I told you the next global flashpoint isn't Ukraine, isn't Taiwan, but a frozen island with more ice than people? Welcome to Greenland. This week, the White House ignited a diplomatic firestorm, not with troops, not with sanctions, but with a mocking image. Two sled dog teams, one fork in the road, one path bathed in sunshine leading straight to the White House, the other swallowed by darkness, storm clouds, lightning, and the flags of Russia and China. The caption? Which way, Greenland man? To many, it wasn't a joke, it was a threat. Greenland is massive, strategic, sparsely populated, and sitting right in the middle of America's Arctic defense line. But now, it's being framed as something else, a choice, America or America's enemies. President Donald Trump didn't back down. The United States needs Greenland for national security. It is vital for the Golden Dome we are building. If we don't get it, Russia or China will. His message was crystal clear. Greenland under US control, or Greenland becomes a battlefield of influence. And this is where things get dangerous. Denmark and Greenland didn't just say no, they said absolutely not.
But there's one thing everyone must understand. Greenland will not be owned by the United States of America. Greenland does not wish to be governed by the United States. Greenland does not want to be a part of the United States. We select the Greenland we know today, and which is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark.
If this matter concerns security in the Arctic, then we are driven by an absolutely unwavering resolve from the Kingdom of Denmark to do everything we possibly can to ensure our security policy. We have demonstrated over many years that we can do this as allies. We are also prepared to invest in the necessary capabilities.
I think our internal relations in this community we have are something we continuously discuss and always have, but the time right now is for us to stand together. Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark and is completely united in its efforts to protect the fundamental principles that are present in the world.
Behind closed doors, top Danish and Greenland diplomats met with US leadership, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The talks? Frank, constructive, but unresolved.
On this basis, we had what I will describe as a frank but also constructive discussion. The discussions focused on how to ensure the long-term security in Greenland. And here our perspectives continue to differ, I must say. The President has made his view clear, and we have a different position. We, the Kingdom of Denmark, continue to believe that also the long-term security of Greenland can be ensured inside the current framework, the 1951 agreement on the defense of Greenland, as well as the NATO treaty. For us, ideas that would not respect territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark and the right of self-determination of the Greenlandic people are, of course, totally unacceptable. And we therefore still have a fundamental disagreement, but we also agree to disagree. And therefore we will, however, continue to talk. We have decided to form a high-level working group to explore if we can find a common way forward.
This isn't just about Greenland anymore. This is about NATO, because Denmark is a NATO ally. Greenland is part of that alliance, and openly pressuring an ally with takeover rhetoric sends shockwaves through Europe. Some European officials are asking a terrifying question. What happens if the US decides diplomacy isn't enough? Trump's critics say the White House graphic wasn't messaging, it was mockery, it was coercion, it was the language of power, not partnership.
I wouldn't be telling you what I'm willing to do, certainly. I'm not going to give up options, but it's very important. Greenland's very important for the national security, including of Denmark. And the problem is not a thing that Denmark can do about it if Russia or China wants to occupy Greenland. But there's everything we can do. You found that out last week with Venezuela. There's everything we can do about things such as that. Not going to happen. We're not, I can't rely on Denmark being able to fend themselves off. They were talking about they put an extra dog, and they were serious about this. They put an extra dog sled there last month. They added a second dog sled. That's not going to do the trick.
On NATO, right now, it sounds like you are saying that you would potentially acquire Greenland by force. That would be a NATO country.
Well,
the
you're
United.
saying that.
Are you saying that? Would you do that?
No, you're saying that.
Would you
I
acquire
didn't
them by
say it.
force
No,
right
you're
now?
telling me that that's what I'm going to do. You don't know what I'm going to do.
So what are the options?
Your
then?
network
Because
doesn't know either.
And Greenlanders themselves, they say they're tired of being treated like a prize on a chessboard.
NATO unity is being tested in the Arctic. Several alliance members are deploying troops to Greenland for what France calls Operation Arctic Endurance. French President Emmanuel Macron frames it as a joint exercise. Denmark calls talks with the US frank but constructive. But beneath the diplomatic language lies a core disagreement. Who ultimately controls Greenland's future?
What happens when a NATO ally says no? No troops, no backup, no boots on the ice. Tonight, Poland draws a red line over Greenland. As global attention locks onto Greenland, one NATO country just made a surprising move. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk says Poland will not send soldiers to Greenland. No participation, no deployment. But his warning was even more dramatic. An attack by one NATO member on another would be the end of the world as we know it, Tusk added. This comes as European NATO allies quietly move in. French troops arrive in Nuuk. Germany, Sweden, Norway, and the UK send personnel. It's being called a reconnaissance mission, but officials admit it's also a message. NATO is present. And then there's Donald Trump. He's doubled down again, saying the US needs Greenland for national security. He didn't rule out force. He warned that Denmark couldn't stop Russia or China, but the US could. So, here's the question everyone's asking. Is Poland avoiding escalation? Is it trying to keep NATO from tearing itself apart? Or is it quietly trying to avoid angering Donald Trump? Because while Polish leaders warned that NATO fighting NATO would be catastrophic, they're also choosing not to stand shoulder to shoulder with Denmark and Greenland. To some, that looks like caution. To others, it looks like hesitation. Greenland's Prime Minister says his people would choose Denmark, not the US. He's clear, Greenland does not want to be owned, does not want to be governed, does not want to be American. And that's why this moment matters. NATO allies are sending troops symbolically. Russia is watching and accusing NATO of militarizing the Arctic. And Poland? Poland is sitting this one out. Is this strategic restraint or the first visible crack in NATO unity? Because when allies stop showing up, the silence can be louder than soldiers. Is Poland playing it smart or playing it safe? Drop your thoughts below.
European troops have now landed in Greenland. Aircraft carrying Danish and French special forces touched down in Nuuk and western Greenland overnight. Notably, their transponders were switched off. A quiet arrival in a region where every move is being closely watched.
The tension hardens in the Arctic. Danish military aircraft have landed in Greenland, unloading troops as Copenhagen braces for a direct standoff with Washington. What was once diplomatic sparring has now shifted onto frozen ground as Denmark and NATO move forces into position amid growing pressure from the United States. 2 Hercules aircraft touched down, one in Nuuk, another in Kangerlussuaq. Soldiers were transported by bus straight to Arctic Command headquarters, signaling urgency and intent. Officials describe the move as defensive, but the timing underscores how quickly the Greenland dispute is escalating. Denmark's foreign minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, says a fundamental disagreement with Donald Trump remains unresolved after high-level talks in Washington. While discussions were described as frank, Copenhagen and Greenland firmly reject U.S. efforts to control the island. Denmark's defense minister announced increased military activity around Greenland, citing an unpredictable security environment. Rasmussen stressed this is not symbolic, committing funds for ships, drones, and fighter jets as Denmark visibly reinforces its Arctic defenses. Several European allies are following suit. Sweden has sent officers ahead of a Danish exercise called Operation Arctic Endurance. Norway confirmed it will deploy personnel, while Germany is dispatching a reconnaissance team to assess maritime surveillance and regional security roles. Trump argues NATO should support a U.S. takeover, claiming Greenland must be under American control to counter China and Russia. Denmark disputes that intelligence, saying no immediate threat exists that NATO cannot manage collectively. Greenland's leaders are unequivocal. Foreign Minister Vivian Motzfeldt says cooperation with Washington does not mean ownership. Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen adds that if forced to choose, Greenland chooses Denmark, NATO, and Europe, not the United States. As melting Arctic ice opens new shipping routes and exposes critical minerals, Greenland's value has surged, militarily and economically. Denmark says it is ready to do more.
From Tehran's streets to Greenland's runways, diplomacy is strained. Alliances are being tested and the margins for error are narrowing. That's world news for you. Thanks for watching.